Good morning, ladies. Welcome to our live session this week, 3 communication methods your tween will love. Now, how would your relationship with your tween change if they felt comfortable sharing thoughts and ideas with you? We're going to dive into that topic today. But before we do, I want to welcome you to our session. I'm Marina Gabor, founder of the Life Skills Club, which will be launching in September, and the primary instructor at Oakfield Safety, where we offer babysitting and home alone courses virtually. And of course, you can find me here on our very own Tween Talk community. Very big welcome to you today. So, by the end of our time together today, you will have some practical tips. I'm all about practical. Let's not talk about theory. Let's talk about how can we make our life better today with our tweens. We're going to talk about balancing your tween's need for privacy while keeping communication lines open. How do we balance those? What about using technology to enhance communication? And how do we find opportunities for connection, building conversations? At the end, I will share with you what I'm launching in September to help your child practice some important life skills. They're developmentally ready to start learning. I promise. These are ones that maybe you have assumed, oh, they'll just pick it up as we go along because they're obvious to you, but you're frustrated because they're just not getting it. More about that at the end. Now, I would love to see you in the chat. If you are here live, please comment #live in the chat so I can say a warm welcome to you live. And if you're here on the replay, please do tag it #replay. Then I will get notified of that so I can come and say hello to you as well. Awesome. Here's a question to get us thinking. How would your relationship with your tween change if they felt comfortable sharing their ideas with you? Now, depending on where you are in this tween journey, some people say tweens start as early as 8, sometimes 9, 10. That murky beginning, kids develop a little bit different in that different time frame. And then let's say all the way up to 13. When they move from 13 to 14, there seems to be a transition. So how would your relationship, with your tween change if they felt comfortable sharing ideas with you? As we move through the 3 methods of communication your tween will love, keep that in mind. Everything is back to relationship. When we're thinking about communication, it goes back to that relationship. It is one of the core life skills, that foundation that is going to help you build that relationship that's going to take you through a more enjoyable tween year experience. Good foundation for the teens when all of a sudden they know everything. And the tweens, they're still going to be wanting to listen and communicate with you. So this is a great time to build those skills. Now, here we go. Number 1, what if, where did we go here? That's not in there. How would your relationship with your tween change if you gave them some privacy with boundaries? Privacy with boundaries. So the number 1 method of communicating, and I'm just gonna see what happened to my banner. It seems to have disappeared. Here we go. We want to give them privacy with boundaries. So they'll love it that you'll trust them enough to have some things private, which they should. As they're growing and developing and becoming more independent, part of that independence means they're developing their own thoughts, their own ideas, and that's a good thing. And they should be able to have some privacy around that. You don't need to know every thought that goes through their head. It's a different type of parenting we're heading into in these tween years. But we still need to keep them safe. Let's unpack that a bit. You're still the parent, but you probably noticed that your tween wants more personal space. They don't want you in their room. They have things that are private that they're hiding when you come and look, or when you come and maybe you knock on the door to their room, and they're hiding something, but it doesn't mean they're hiding something bad. They're just holding things close to their chest. They're wanting some privacy. And so we don't have to assume that every time they want something private does not equal them doing something they shouldn't. Private just means they're not ready to share everything, and that's okay. But the flip side of that is somehow you've got to balance that with ensuring their personal safety. So when we have privacy with some boundaries, it means that if you notice sudden changes in their behavior, maybe all of a sudden they're becoming aggressive, you're like, who is this kid? Or they're excessively secretive, or they're withdrawn, you hardly ever see them, or drastic changes in their academic performance. They were an A student, now they're a D student. What happened? Or the things they used to really enjoy doing, they don't enjoy doing anymore. These are signs that something is not quite right. And as a parent, it's our job to investigate. So that's where this privacy with boundaries comes in. And we think, yes, you can have your privacy, but if I think that your safety is at risk, then I need to intervene. We need to breach some of that privacy to see what is happening. Do you need help? How can I help you? You're keeping your eye out for these extremes, this evidence of risky behavior, but your first thought isn't that they're doing all these things and they're doing all these things bad and they're being so secretive, and you don't need to continually snoop through all their things to see what's going on. That's going to break trust. Your number one goal is to build the relationship with a foundation of trust and mutual respect, but also understanding that as their parent, if you notice signs of risky behaviors, you will investigate, because keeping your child is more important than their privacy in that case. But you also need to communicate that with them. So yes, you can have this privacy, but if I notice that some of these things are happening, I am going to start trying to find out what's going on. Let them know. And they will be happy that you have their back, even if they don't seem like it at first. Same goes for phone use, which we'll talk about in a bit. That can spark a whole new topic of how old should my kid be before they have a phone, to which I answer as old as possible. And they don't need data, although they probably know how to connect to public Wi-Fi. So whatever you decide with the phone, just don't be naive thinking that just because they don't have data doesn't mean they don't have access to the internet. Again, it's just clear boundaries and expectations. So the phone is yours, which means at any time you can ask for it back or do a random phone check. Not because you're malicious, not because you just are snoopy. You need to protect your child, and they don't know all the dangers that are out there. So you have to help them. But we want to communicate clearly about safety. What are the things out there that could be causing them to be at risk? Talk about these things with them. Create an awareness. Talk about how they can protect themselves. Talk about how you, as the parent, how it's your job to protect them, and let them know what you're doing to keep them safe. That way, if you have to step in, they're not going to like it, but they'll feel protected. And deep down, Even if it doesn't seem like it, they'll know that you love them. It has to be motivated by love. So it's always this balance of privacy as they become more independent and the boundaries of that privacy and independence. All of this to help them navigate through these preteen years. Now, as a word of encouragement, if you make communication and connection a priority, it will help you get through the hard stuff. There is hard stuff in the tween years, a lot of hard stuff. They're growing, they're developing, they're trying to sort things out, figure out this newfound independence. What does that look like? Who am I as a person? All of these things, there's some hard stuff. But if you can continue to communicate, build a connection, build that trust, that relationship, it's going to allow you to enjoy parts of the process here. Now, the next method, so first one, privacy and boundaries. Number 2, here we go. Use technology to stay connected. Your kids will love this. Tweens are dying to get their first phone. They're like, oh, I just want my first phone. How can I get my first phone? And like I said, that's something that you need to work through as a family. What are your rules around that? And you're going to have to figure that out, talk about it, and that's going to change as they get older. Now, here's a question to think about. How would your relationship with your tween change if you use technology as one way to stay connected? How would your relationship with your tween change if you use technology as one way to stay connected? It can make a difference. Now, we've got texting, there can be messaging, video calls, even not on the phone, you can be emailing. There's different ways to communicate using technology. You can use it to stay connected. Now, we didn't give our girls phones the minute they entered their tweens, but like many families, we got rid of our landline. And as the girls got old enough to stay home by themselves for short periods of time, they needed a way to get in touch with us when they were at home and we were not. So we got a home phone, meaning a cell phone that was at home. Or if the girls went out, they could take it with them so we could communicate with them. It was their phone, but it was a collective family group phone that they could use. It had text and talk, no data, but it changed how we communicated. For one thing, they loved it. They loved being able to text. It was this novelty, and we got to stay in touch. And that was great. Now, that didn't rule out family dinners, other times for connecting throughout the day. We homeschool. There's lots of different connection points that I've put throughout the day, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But rather than say, oh, you can never have a decent conversation over text, which is kind of true. There's not enough nuance, no matter how many emojis you insert. At some point, you still need to have an actual conversation, but we can use texting, emailing, FaceTime, this kind of thing for adding on to those connecting times. It opens up this opportunity for making staying in touch normal. And at the beginning of the tween years, maybe your kids aren't staying home very much by themselves. This is a new thing. They're learning how to do that. And they're going to things, but you're usually going with them. And as they progress through the tween years, it's going to be more separation, more them going out, you at home, you going out, them at home. And you're going to want that point of connection. Now, texting doesn't just have to be, I'm coming home from the store. Okay, thanks. Connection through text can be all sorts of things. Something funny that happened, a question they have. Eventually, if you are all on, say you all have Apple phones, you all have iPhones, it's easy to make group chats. I'm not sure about Android. I think it might be similar. And I know now, and it started in the tweens, they started finding memes because we have Wi-Fi in the house. They had it on their phone. And there's like memes and different things. And they're experimenting with emojis and so on and so forth. So we're having all these little bits of conversation by text, which actually enriches the in-person conversation because you've already established connection. You have some of that small talkish stuff out of the way. You have a common thing that you found funny, or also sometimes it's just easier to start a conversation in text. Hey, we need to talk about this at some point. That gives people a chance to start thinking about it. Then when you talk about it in person, you have already broached the subject. Like it's easier to dive in and talk about things. So we said, if your tween is asking for a phone, hold off as long as possible. But consider talk and text so they can stay in touch. And talk about online safety. It is such a big deal. It is so easy to just get sucked into whatever is online and addicted and so on and so forth. So talk about it. Not as a big preachy conversation, not you being on a soapbox, but as an actual dialogue. What do they think about internet safety? What do they think could happen? Who do they think they should be talking to? See what they're thinking about it, and then come in and have that conversation. Essentially, we've told our girls, we still continue to tell our girls, even in their late teens, anything you wouldn't want on a billboard, any conversation you wouldn't want somebody to take a screenshot of and post somewhere else, don't create it. Just don't do it. If there's a picture that you take and it was on a billboard, would you want it up there? If not, don't take the picture or don't send the picture. But just that constant conversation, not fear-mongering, just being wise. Now, they might start to love sending you photos. I think we have thousands of cat and dog photos on our phones because our kids love sending us pictures. Oh, the cat did this cute thing. Snap a photo, send a photo. We have like a group chat, a family group chat. Your kids might love this mode of conversation so much, you might think, oh my goodness, I can't handle like all of the dings. Well, maybe turn off the notifications and like just keep an eye on it, look at it throughout the day. But it is worth having that channel open, even if you feel like now they're going to be texting you incessantly, which they might be. It's okay. You've got that communication line open. That is so valuable. That is building the relationship. It is worth it. Which brings us to our third method of communicating with your teen in a way that they'll love, and this is casual conversations. So, how would your relationship with your tween change if you created space for casual conversation? I'm not talking small talk necessarily. It's sort of like one level above. I know that personally, I had to intentionally make space for these casual conversations. Otherwise, I just continued in the method of parenting that I had when they were kids, where you were like, okay, you need to do this. Now you do this. Now you do this. Mommy loves you, whatever. Like all of those more statements, commands, getting them to do the next thing. Now, as they're becoming more independent, they're starting to design their days. And part of that means that we can have less, okay, do this now, do this now, do this now, and more, hey, so what's the next thing that you're doing? So asking them, getting them to start telling you stuff. What are they doing? Oh, I'm working on this. Not accusatory. What are you doing right now? But hey, what have you got going on? Um, can you fold the towels, please? But what are you working on right now? Can you do it when you're finished? So there's no timeline really on the towels. And instead of just jumping in and saying, do this now, I'm opening some space. I'm having this like little micro conversation in this little bit of margin between activities. And I'm saying, what have you got going on? And actually being curious, what do they have going on? And that it matters what they're doing. Even if they're drawing, I'm drawing something. Okay. So it's 10 after the hour now. So in 20 minutes, can you put your drawing aside and fold the towels? You're having this conversation, casual conversation. It's not deep, it's not earth shattering, but it's above that small talk. I call these intentional connecting points. They seem spontaneous, but I think our job as moms is to create space, intentionally create space, to add margin, kind of like a book. So you think about the last time you read a paper book and you notice it has margins on the sides, there's spacing between the lines. That's margin, that's white space. That's what we need in our lives to allow room for these casual conversations to happen. What happens, like imagine maybe you found a book like this, read a book, and the type is like from inside all the way to the outside, just straight across, straight across, straight across, hardly any space between the lines. There's no room for anything else. In fact, it's really hard to read, really hard to function. The same with our lives. So if we add some margin to our days, to our schedule, and go, where are some times during the day where there's like friction, where it always seems we're a little bit at each other, or it's not fun being there. It's not a relaxed atmosphere. Pinpoint those areas of your day and think, how can I add just a little bit of margins? How can I stretch the time between one activity and the other? Usually it's those transition times. How can you stretch the time a little bit, add a little bit of margin? So if your tween starts talking to you, you have time to listen, like actually listen, not just like, okay, yep, now get in the car. No, but you have time even for like a couple of minutes to hear what they have to say. It'll make a difference. So today we've talked about 3 methods of communicating with your tween that they will love. The bonus is you're going to build a strong relationship and a foundation for the coming years. And you're going to have a more peaceful relationship now. Communication is one of those core life skills your tween could be learning at the Life Skills Club this fall. We open doors on September 8th. I am super excited. Your tween will get a regular dose of guided life skills practice every week. It'll be fun. I promise. And you will get a kid who is learning to be better organized, to think critically, to clearly express their ideas without you nagging. It's win-win. So if you'd like to know more, type waitlist in the chat and you will be at the top of the list when we launch. I want to thank you for joining me today. Thank you, thank you. And remember, balancing boundaries or privacy and boundaries. See how you can incorporate some technology use in your communication and start stretching those margins a bit to leave room for casual conversations. Until next time, talk with your tween. Bye.